The coffee shop was supposed to be neutral territory, just another overpriced Manhattan cafe where the rich grabbed their morning fix and the poor like Naomi Washington cleaned up after them. But when the barista loudly announced that the ragged man's card was declined, when the designer-clad customers laughed at his humiliation, when everyone acted like poverty was contagious, 28-year-old Naomi did something that would change two lives forever. She paid for his coffee with her last $3. The homeless man stared at her, this exhausted black cleaner in her faded uniform who had nothing but gave it anyway, and felt something crack inside his chest. Because William Whitaker, secret billionaire playing dress-up in torn clothes, had just discovered that the woman who mopped his floors possessed more genuine wealth than anyone in his boardroom ever would. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The November morning air bit through Naomi's thin jacket as she stepped out of the office building, her cleaning uniform still damp with sweat from 8 hours of scrubbing floors. Her bones ached in that familiar way that told her she was only 28, but her body felt twice that age. The faded blue uniform hung loose on her frame, the company logo barely visible after countless washes in the laundromat's cheapest cycle. She checked her phone. 5:30 in the morning. Jordan would be up in an hour, needing breakfast before school. Her younger brother, only 16, never complained about their situation, but Naomi knew he deserved better than the stale cereal that waited in their cupboard. Today was Friday, though. Friday meant her one small luxury. Naomi pulled the crumpled bills from her pocket, counting them carefully as she walked. $3.72. Enough for a small black coffee at Gilded Grounds, the fancy cafe 2 blocks from her cleaning job. Most weeks, she'd never dream of spending money there, but Fridays were different. Fridays, she allowed herself 15 minutes to sit in those plush chairs, to pretend she belonged among the business suits and designer handbags, to drink coffee that didn't taste like burnt water. The cafe glowed warm against the gray morning. Through the windows, she could see the early crowd already forming, executives grabbing their complicated drinks before heading to corner offices in buildings she cleaned at night. Naomi pushed through the heavy glass door, the little bell above announcing her arrival. The barista, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, glanced at Naomi's uniform and her smile tightened just a fraction. Naomi was used to it. She moved to the back of the line, keeping her eyes on the menu board even though she knew exactly what she'd order. That's when she noticed him. The man looked completely out of place, even more than she did. His clothes were torn at the edges, his gray hair uncombed and wild, his beard untrimmed. He shuffled forward in line, his shoulders hunched like he was trying to make himself smaller. The other customers gave him a wide berth, some wrinkling their noses, others pointedly looking at their phones. Naomi watched him reach the counter. His voice was gravelly when he spoke, asking for a medium coffee and a blueberry muffin. The barista's fake smile disappeared entirely. "That'll be $12.50, she said, her tone clipped. The man pulled out a credit card, its edges worn. The barista swiped it with obvious reluctance, then frowned. She swiped again. "I'm sorry, sir, but your card has been declined." The words rang out louder than necessary. Conversation stopped. Every eye in the cafe turned toward the shabby man at the counter. "Could you try again?" His voice was quieter now, almost embarrassed. The barista swiped once more, slowly, deliberately, making a show of it. "Declined," she announced, louder still. "Do you have another form of payment?" The man patted his pockets, coming up empty. His shoulders sagged further. Someone behind Naomi chuckled. Another person whispered something about these people to their companion. "I'm sorry," the man said, starting to turn away. "I didn't realize." "Wait." Naomi heard herself speak before she'd made the conscious decision. She stepped forward, pulling out her precious $3 and change. "I'll pay for it." The cafe went silent. The barista stared at her like she'd spoken in a foreign language. The shabby man turned, his eyes sharp and alert despite his appearance, meeting hers with genuine surprise. "I couldn't possibly," he started. "It's just coffee," Naomi said softly, placing her money on the counter. "And a muffin. Everyone deserves breakfast." She turned to the barista. "Could you add a small black coffee to that order? I'll pay for both." The barista looked between them, clearly uncomfortable. The math was simple. Naomi didn't have enough for both orders. She'd have to go without her Friday coffee. But something about the way everyone stared at this man, the way they'd laughed at his misfortune, made her angry in a quiet, determined way. "Ma'am, that's not enough for both," the barista said. Naomi dug deeper in her pocket, finding 2 quarters she'd forgotten about. "Still not enough." The man beside her shifted, about to protest again, but she held up her hand. "Just as order then," she said quietly. "I'm not that hungry anyway." The transaction completed in awkward silence. The man accepted his coffee and muffin like they were made of gold, his hands trembling slightly. When he looked at Naomi, really looked at her, she saw something flash in his eyes. Not pity, not charity, but genuine bewilderment. "Why?" he asked simply. Naomi shrugged, already backing away. "I know what it's like to not have much. Sometimes the world needs a little kindness, you know?" She turned to leave, ignoring the stares, ignoring the whispers. At the door, she paused and looked back. The man stood frozen in place, holding his coffee like he'd forgotten what to do with it. "Enjoy your breakfast," she called out, then pushed through the door into the cold morning. The bus stop was only a block away, but Naomi walked slowly, savoring the feeling of having done something good, even if it meant her stomach would growl until lunch. She didn't notice the sleek black sedan parked across from the cafe, its engine running. She didn't see the man in the expensive suit sitting in the back, speaking quietly into an earpiece. And she definitely didn't hear what he said. "Mr. Whitaker is maintaining his cover perfectly. Though I must say, sir, that interaction was unexpected." Back in the cafe, the shabby man, Mr. Whitaker, stood at the window, watching Naomi disappear around the corner. He sipped his coffee thoughtfully, then glanced at the black sedan. The driver raised an eyebrow through the tinted glass, a silent question. Whitaker shook his head slightly. "Not yet." He found an empty table in the corner and sat down, pulling the muffin apart with careful fingers. Around him, the cafe returned to its normal rhythm, customers already forgetting the scene they'd witnessed. But Whitaker didn't forget. He pulled out a small, battered notebook, part of his disguise, and wrote down a single line. "Naomi, cleaner, paid for coffee." He stared at the words for a long moment, then added, "Find out more." Outside, the city was waking up properly now, the streets filling with cars and buses, and people rushing to start their day. Naomi sat on the cold metal bench at the bus stop, her stomach empty, but her heart oddly full. She thought about Jordan, about the breakfast she'd promised him, about the bills waiting in the drawer at home. The burden of it all should have felt heavier after giving away her coffee money, but somehow it didn't. The bus arrived with a wheeze of brakes and a blast of warm air. Naomi climbed aboard, finding a seat near the back. As the city rolled by outside her window, she didn't think about the strange man in the cafe again. She had more pressing concerns. Jordan needed new shoes for gym class. The electricity bill was overdue, and she needed to pick up an extra shift this weekend to make ends meet. But across town, in a penthouse office that wouldn't open for another 3 hours, a very different conversation was taking place. The black sedan had pulled into an underground garage, and the shabby man was walking through private corridors, his demeanor changing with each step. By the time he reached the private elevator, he stood straighter. By the time the doors opened on the top floor, his eyes had lost their dull sheen. "Sir," his assistant, Thomas, greeted him. "How was the morning's excursion?" "Enlightening," Whitaker replied, his voice no longer gravelly but smooth, commanding. "I need you to find information on someone. A cleaner, works the night shift at the Branson building. First name Naomi." Thomas raised an eyebrow, but knew better than to question. "Right away, sir. Anything specific you're looking for?" Whitaker moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city, his reflection showing a man far different from the one who'd stood in the cafe. Even in the torn clothes, his bearing had changed completely. "Everything," he said quietly. "I want to know everything." Naomi pushed through the door of their small apartment, the familiar smell of must and old carpet greeting her. The sun was fully up now, streaming through the thin curtains she'd bought at a thrift store last year. She could hear Jordan in his room, the frustrated muttering that meant he was fighting with their ancient laptop again. "Jordan, I'm home," she called out, setting down the small bag of groceries she'd grabbed from the corner store. Dole bread and peanut butter, the breakfast of champions, she thought wryly. Her brother appeared in the doorway, his face lighting up when he saw her. At 16, Jordan was all gangly limbs and potential, his bright eyes always seeming to see possibilities where Naomi only saw problems. He had their mother's sharp mind and their father's determination, the best of both parents they'd lost too young. "The laptop's dead again," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "I tried everything, but it won't even turn on now." Naomi's heart sank. That laptop was Jordan's lifeline to his schoolwork, his window to a world beyond their cramped apartment. She moved to his room, looking at the ancient machine that they'd bought third-hand 2 years ago. "Maybe it just needs to rest," she said hopefully, though they both knew better. "Use the library computer this weekend for your homework." Jordan nodded, but she caught the flash of disappointment in his eyes. He picked up a piece of paper from his desk, holding it out to her with forced casualness. "Mr. Peterson wants to talk to you about the robotics club again," he said. "The winter session starts next week." Naomi took the paper, her stomach tightening as she saw the fee at the bottom. $300. It might as well have been $3,000. "Jordan, I know," he said quickly. "I know we can't afford it. I just thought, maybe if I got a job." "No." Naomi's voice was firm. "You focus on school. That's your job. I'll figure something out." It was a lie, and they both knew it, but Jordan smiled anyway, hugging her quickly before retreating to his room. Naomi stood in the narrow hallway, the permission slip crumpling in her hand. She moved to her own room, barely bigger than a closet, and opened the drawer of her nightstand. The bills were stacked there, organized by urgency. Electricity due yesterday, rent due next week, water bill from last month still untouched. She added the robotics club form to the pile, knowing it would stay at the bottom, unfulfilled like so many other dreams. Her phone buzzed. A text from her supervisor at the cleaning company. "Can you take a double tonight? Richardson building needs coverage." She typed back yes before she could think about how tired she was. Double shift meant double pay. Maybe she could at least get the electricity turned back on before they cut it. Across the city, in a world that might as well have been on another planet, the man from the cafe stood in a marble bathroom larger than Naomi's entire apartment. The torn clothes lay in a heap on the floor as he stepped out of the shower, reaching for a towel that cost more than Naomi made in a week. William Whitaker, CEO of Whitaker Industries, looked at himself in the mirror. At 62, he was still sharp, still powerful, but lately, he'd felt disconnected from the empire he'd built. The board meeting yesterday had been the final straw, discussing labor optimization and expenditure reduction like they weren't talking about real people, real lives. That's when he decided on this experiment. Live among them. See the world from the bottom up. His board thought he was losing his mind, but Whitaker knew better. He was trying to find it again. Thomas knocked on the door. "Sir, I have that information you requested." Whitaker emerged in a simple bathrobe, accepting the tablet his assistant offered. Naomi's face stared back at him from an employee ID photo. She looked tired, even in the professional headshot. Naomi Washington, Thomas read from his notes. 28 years old. Been with Clean Bright Services for 3 years. Perfect attendance record until last month when she took 2 days off. Her brother was in the hospital with pneumonia. Brother? Jordan Washington, 16. Honor roll student at Lincoln High. Parents died in a car accident 5 years ago. Naomi became his legal guardian. They live in Riverside Heights. Whitaker knew Riverside Heights. It was where his company had recently bought several buildings, planning to tear them down for luxury condos. Financial status? Thomas shifted uncomfortably. Behind on most bills, sir. She works an average of 60 hours a week between regular shifts and overtime. The brother has shown exceptional aptitude in science and technology, but they can't afford any of the advanced programs. Whitaker studied the photo again. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the ID picture, He could see the exhaustion she'd hidden so well in the cafe. But there was something else, too, a strength in her eyes, a refusal to be broken. I want to know where she works, he said suddenly. Her cleaning routes, schedules, everything. Sir, if I may ask. You may not. Whitaker's tone was gentle but final. Just give me the information. That evening, as Naomi prepared for her double shift, she made Jordan promise to eat the sandwich she'd left in the fridge and to be in bed by 11. He rolled his eyes at her mothering, but promised anyway. The Richardson building was one of the newer additions to her route, all glass and steel and modern art that probably cost more than she'd make in a lifetime. She arrived at 8, joining the crew of other cleaners in the basement supply room. Heard you got a double tonight, her coworker Maria said. You trying to kill yourself, girl? Naomi managed a smile. Just trying to live. They worked in companionable silence for the first few hours, moving through the floors with practiced efficiency. It was mindless work, which Naomi usually appreciated. It let her mind wander, plan, dream. But tonight, she kept thinking about the man from the cafe, about the surprise in his eyes when she'd paid for his coffee. Around midnight, she was alone on the 15th floor, vacuuming the executive conference room, when she heard footsteps. Security probably doing their rounds. But when she looked up, she saw a familiar figure in torn clothes. You, she said, surprise making her forget professionalism. What are you doing here? The shabby man, she realized she didn't even know his name, stood in the doorway, looking as surprised as she felt. I sometimes sleep in the building, he said, the lie coming easily. The security guards, they know me. I don't cause trouble. Naomi's suspicion melted into sympathy. Of course. It was warm here, safe. She'd seen homeless people trying to find shelter in office buildings before. You could get in trouble, she said softly. He shrugged, that same defeated gesture from the cafe. Story of my life. Something about the way he said it, tired and resigned, made her heart ache. She thought of Jordan, of how easily they could be in the same position if she missed too many payments. What's your name? She asked. William, he said after a pause. Friends call me Will. Not that I have many of those anymore. I am Naomi. She extended her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, he shook it. His grip was firm, his hands softer than she'd expected for someone living rough. I remember, he said, from this morning. I wanted to thank you again. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. His voice was intense suddenly, those sharp eyes boring into hers. When's the last time someone showed you kindness without wanting something in return? The question hung in the air between them. Naomi couldn't remember. I should get back to work, she said finally. Of course. He stepped aside to let her pass with the vacuum. Naomi? That thing you said this morning about money not deciding who you are. Did you mean it? She paused at the door. Every word. He nodded slowly, then disappeared into the hallway. Naomi went back to her vacuuming, but her mind was racing. Something about William didn't add up. The way he held himself, the way he spoke when he forgot to make his voice rough, even the way he'd shaken her hand, it all suggested someone who'd known better times. At 3 a.m, when she finally took her break, she found him in the employee break room, sitting at one of the tables with a cup of water. Security really lets you stay here? She asked, grabbing her lunch from the refrigerator, a bologna sandwich that had seen better days. Tom and I have an understanding, he said, which was technically true. Thomas did understand perfectly well what his boss was doing. She sat across from him, too tired to eat, standing up. So what's your story, Will? How does someone end up? She gestured vaguely at his situation. Bad investments, he said, which was also technically true. He had made bad investments in people who cared more about profit than humanity. Lost everything in the span of a few months. Family, friends, they all disappeared when the money did. I am sorry. Are you? He studied her face. Most people would say, I got what I deserved. Rich man loses his fortune, learns what real life is like. Nobody deserves to be abandoned, Naomi said firmly. Money or no money, people should stick together. She told him about her parents then, surprising herself with the openness. About the accident, about becoming Jordan's guardian at 23, about the dreams she'd put aside to keep them afloat. What dreams? William asked. She laughed, embarrassed. Stupid stuff. I wanted to be a teacher. Elementary school. I was 2 years into my degree when... She shrugged. Life happened. That's not stupid. It is when you can barely keep the lights on, she said, then literally winced. Sorry, that was... Honest, he finished. I prefer honest. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Naomi's phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. Can't sleep. Laptop made weird burning smell, then died completely. I'm sorry. Her heart sank. Without that laptop, Jordan would fall behind. His grades would suffer. His dreams of college, of building robots and changing the world, would get a little dimmer. Everything okay? William asked, noticing her expression. Just my brother. His laptop died and we can't. She stopped, embarrassed to be discussing money with someone who had even less than she did. Can't afford a new one, William finished gently. How old is he? 16. Smartest kid you'd ever meet. He wants to join this robotics club, but... She laughed bitterly. Everything costs money, doesn't it? William was quiet for a long moment. Then not everything. Kindness doesn't. Dignity doesn't. Love doesn't. Try paying rent with dignity, Naomi said, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry. I'm tired, Anne. You're right, William said. But you're also wrong. The things that cost money, they're important, yes. But the things that don't, those are what make us human. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Despite his shabby clothes and unkempt appearance, there was something about him, a dignity that poverty hadn't taken, a sharpness that suggested depths she couldn't see. I should get back to work, she said, standing. Naomi, he called as she reached the door. Your brother's lucky to have you. She smiled sadly. I'm not sure he'd agree. A sister who can't even get him into robotics club isn't much of a guardian. After she left, William sat alone in the break room, his mind churning. He pulled out his phone, a beat-up flip phone that was part of his disguise, but actually worked, and sent a text to Thomas. Need more information on Jordan Washington. School records, teachers' comments, everything. The response came quickly. Sir, it's 3 a.m. and information will be ready by morning. William smiled grimly. By morning, he'd know everything about the Washington siblings. And maybe, just maybe, he'd figure out why a woman who had nothing was the first person in years to make him question everything about the life he'd built. The following week brought an unexpected cold snap to the city, and Naomi pulled her thin jacket tighter as she walked Jordan to school. They developed this Friday tradition when she had the morning off. She'd walk him the 12 blocks to Lincoln High, and they'd talk about everything and nothing. But this morning, Jordan was unusually quiet. You okay? She asked as they waited at a crosswalk. Jordan kicked at a piece of trash on the sidewalk. Some kids at school were talking yesterday. About my shoes. Naomi looked down at his sneakers, the same ones he'd worn for 2 years, held together with superglue and hope. The sole was separating from the left one, and she tried to fix it with duct tape, but it hadn't held. They're just shoes, she said softly, though her heart ached. Marcus said I look like I shop at the dumpster, Jordan muttered. And when I tried to explain that you work really hard, he said... He stopped. What did he say? He said if you work that hard, we wouldn't be so poor. He said maybe you're just not smart enough for a better job. Naomi felt the words like a physical blow. She stopped walking, turning to face her brother. Jordan, look at me. He did, his eyes shining with unshed tears of frustration. I'm not ashamed of what I do, she said firmly. I work honest work. I pay our bills. I keep us together. That's smart. That's strong. Don't let anyone tell you different. Jordan nodded, but she could see he was still hurting. They walked the rest of the way in silence, and when they reached the school, he hugged her quickly before disappearing into the crowd of students. Naomi watched him go, noticing how he kept his head down, trying to hide his shoes. That afternoon, she picked up an extra shift at a medical building downtown. The pay was slightly better for medical facilities, hazard pay, they called it, and she needed every penny. She was mopping the third-floor hallway when exhaustion hit her like a wave. The mop handle slipped from her hands, and she barely caught herself against the wall before her knees buckled. Whoa there! Strong hands steadied her, and she looked up to find William standing there, that same concerned expression from the coffee shop on his weathered face. What are you doing here? She asked. embarrassed by her weakness. I was around, he said vaguely. In truth, Thomas had informed him of her schedule, and he'd been curious about her life beyond their late-night conversations. When's the last time you ate? This morning, she lied. He gave her a look that said he didn't believe her. Come on, there's a cafe downstairs. Let me buy you a sandwich. I can't. I'm working. You're about to fall over. 5 minutes won't kill you. She wanted to protest, but her body betrayed her with a wave of dizziness. William guided her to the elevator, and soon they were sitting in the hospital cafe. He bought 2 sandwiches and 2 coffees, waving away her protests. Eat, he commanded, and something in his tone made her obey. The sandwich was the best thing she'd tasted in weeks. Real turkey, fresh vegetables, good bread. She tried to eat slowly, with dignity, but hunger won out. Thank you, she said when she'd finished half. I'll pay you back. No, you won't. His voice was firm. Friends don't keep tabs. Are we friends? She asked, genuinely curious. You don't even know my last name. Washington, he said without thinking, then caught himself. I assumed. You mentioned it, didn't you? She frowned, trying to remember. I don't think so. Must have been someone else then, he said quickly. I meet a lot of people. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Naomi's phone rang. It was Jordan's school. Ms. Washington? This is Principal Davies. There's been an incident with Jordan. Could you come to the school? Naomi's blood ran cold. Is he hurt? No, but there was an altercation. We need to discuss it in person. She hung up, panic written across her face. I have to go. My brother. I'll come with you, William said immediately. You don't have to. Friends, remember? Let me help. She was too worried to argue. They caught a bus to Lincoln High, William paying the fare for both of them. During the ride, he watched her twist her hands in her lap, saw the fear and exhaustion battling in her eyes. At the school, they found Jordan sitting outside the principal's office with a split lip and defiant eyes. Naomi rushed to him, checking him over. What happened? Marcus wouldn't stop, Jordan said quietly. He kept saying things about you, about us. So I hit him. Before Naomi could respond, the principal's door opened. Principal Davies, a stern woman in her 50s, looked surprised to see William there. And you are? A family friend, William said smoothly. Here, for support. The meeting was humiliating. Marcus's parents were there, his father in an expensive suit, his mother dripping with jewelry. They demanded Jordan be expelled, threatened to sue, spoke about children from broken homes, like Jordan wasn't sitting right there. Your son has been bullying Jordan for months, Naomi said, fighting to keep her voice level. Teasing isn't bullying, Marcus's mother said dismissively. Perhaps if Jordan wasn't so sensitive. Perhaps if your son wasn't such a spoiled little. Naomi caught herself, biting back the words. See, the father said to Principal Davies. This is clearly where the boy gets his violent tendencies. William had been silent until then, but something in him snapped. He leaned forward, and suddenly the shabby, homeless man was gone. In his place sat someone with presence, with authority. Tell me, he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that made everyone look at him. What kind of man raises a son to mock another child's poverty? What kind of parents teach their child that wealth makes them superior? Marcus's father bristled. I don't see how that's any of your business, mister. Someone who knows that character isn't determined by the size of your bank account, William replied. Jordan defended his sister's honor. Your son attacked someone's dignity. Which one really deserves punishment? The room fell silent. Principal Davies cleared her throat. Jordan will serve 3 days of in-school suspension. Marcus will serve 1 day for his part in the altercation. It wasn't fair, but Naomi knew it was the best they'd get. As they left the office, Marcus's mother muttered something about trash defending trash. William heard it. He stopped, turned, and looked her dead in the eye. Ma'am, the only trash I see here is the values you're teaching your son. Outside the school, Jordan looked at William with new interest. That was awesome, he said. The way you talked to them, it was like you weren't afraid of them at all. Why would I be afraid of them? William asked. Because they're rich. They have power. William knelt down to Jordan's level, his eyes serious. Real power isn't about money, Jordan. It's about knowing who you are and not letting anyone make you feel less than. Your sister has more power in her little finger than those people have in their entire bodies. Jordan smiled for the first time that day. As they walked to the bus stop, he peppered William with questions about everything from robotics to philosophy. William answered them all with a depth of knowledge that made Naomi look at him suspiciously. You know a lot about engineering for someone who's... She trailed off, not wanting to say homeless in front of Jordan. I read a lot, William said quickly. Libraries are warm and free. That evening, William insisted on walking them home. Their apartment building was worse than he'd imagined. Water stains on the ceiling, broken tiles in the lobby, the elevator permanently out of order. They climbed 4 flights of stairs, Jordan chattering about his robotics ideas while Naomi grew quieter with each step. This is us, she said at apartment 4B, clearly embarrassed. Kim will see my robot sketches. Jordan asked eagerly. Naomi hesitated, not wanting this man to see how they lived, but Jordan's enthusiasm won out. Their apartment was clean but sparse. A small living room with a patched couch, a kitchen with mismatched dishes, 2 bedrooms barely big enough for beds. Jordan immediately dragged William to his room, showing him notebooks filled with detailed drawings of robots and mechanical designs. William was genuinely impressed. These are remarkable, he said, meaning it. Have you ever built any of them? Can't afford the parts, Jordan said matter-of-factly. But someday, when I get into MIT or somewhere, I'll build them all. William felt something twist in his chest. This brilliant kid, limited only by money. He thought of the thousands he spent on board dinners, on wine that cost more than Naomi made in a month. Jordan, homework, Naomi called from the kitchen. After Jordan reluctantly went to his room, Naomi walked William to the door. Thank you, she said, for today, for standing up for us. Anyone would have. No, she interrupted. They wouldn't. They didn't. You did. They stood there for a moment, something unspoken hanging between them. Then William's eyes caught something on the small table by the door, a pile of bills, the red final notice stamps visible. Naomi, don't, she said quietly. Please. I know what you're going to say, and I can't. I can't take money from you. Why not? Because then we wouldn't be friends. We'd be charity case and benefactor. And I need a friend more than I need money. The words hung between them, honest and raw. William nodded slowly, understanding even as it killed him not to help. As he left, he heard Jordan call out from his room, Bye, Will. Come back soon. I will. William called back and meant it. In the stairwell, he pulled out his phone and called Thomas. I need you to do something for me. Anonymously. Jordan Washington needs to get into that robotics club, and their electricity needs to stay on. Sir, if the woman finds out, she won't. Make it look like a clerical error, a scholarship, anything. Just make it happen. Back in the apartment, Naomi sat with Jordan as he did his homework, helping where she could. I like Will, Jordan said suddenly. He's different. Different how? Jordan thought about it. He listens, like really listens. And when he was talking to those parents today, it was like he knew something they didn't, like he was seeing the whole picture and they were only seeing a little piece. Naomi nodded, remembering the way William had transformed in that office, the authority in his voice, the confidence in his bearing. Yeah, she said softly. He is different. That night, as she got ready for her shift, she found herself thinking about William's words. Friends don't keep tabs. When was the last time she'd had a real friend? Someone who didn't want something from her, who didn't judge her for her circumstances. At work, she found herself humming for the first time in months. Her supervisor, Rosa, noticed. You're in a good mood. Just a good day, Naomi said. Girl, you worked a double, nearly passed out, and had to deal with your brother's school. How was that a good day? Naomi thought about William's hand steadying her, his voice defending them, the way Jordan had smiled. I guess it's all about perspective. Rosa shook her head. You're weird, Washington, but weird in a good way. As Naomi pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway, she didn't notice the security camera following her movement or the man in the expensive suit watching the feed from his penthouse office. William Whitaker sat in his leather chair, watching Naomi work on his screen. Thomas stood beside him, uncomfortable. Sir, this is becoming Complicated. Yes, William agreed. It is. The board is starting to ask questions. Your absences, your strange behavior. Richardson is building a case against you. William didn't take his eyes off the screen. Naomi was training a new employee, showing them the proper way to clean without damaging the expensive furniture. She was patient, kind, thorough. Let them build, he said finally. I'm learning more about our company's real impact than I have in 20 years of board meetings. By spying on a cleaning woman? William turned to face his assistant. By understanding what we've forgotten, Thomas, that every decision we make affects real people. People like Naomi and Jordan. People we've been stepping on while we reach for higher profits. Thomas was quiet for a moment. The anonymous donations have been arranged. The robotics club will offer Jordan a scholarship next week, and their electricity bill has been paid for 3 months in advance. Good. William turned back to the screen. And Thomas? I need you to arrange something else. A reassignment for Naomi. To our headquarters. Sir, that's going to raise questions. Then make sure they're not asked. I want to see how she handles herself in our environment. Consider it a test. A test of what? William watched as Naomi helped her coworker lift a heavy trash bag, taking the heavier end without being asked. Character, Thomas. I'm testing character. 3 days later, Naomi arrived at work to find Rosa waiting for her with an unusual expression, somewhere between excitement and concern. Washington, I got news. You've been reassigned. What? Where? Naomi's heart sank. Reassignment usually meant a worse building, farther away, for less pay. Whitaker Industries headquarters. The big tower downtown. Naomi blinked. Whitaker Industries was legendary among the cleaning crews. The best pay, the best benefits, but also the most demanding. The building was 60 floors of marble and glass. Corporate power made physical. But I don't have seniority for that placement, Naomi said, confused. Rosa shrugged. Someone upstairs requested you specifically. Says here you're covering for someone on medical leave. Temporary assignment, but Washington. She leaned in close. That building pays time and a half. Don't screw this up. That night, Naomi stood outside the Whitaker Industries tower, craning her neck to see the top. The building seemed to pierce the sky itself, all gleaming surfaces and architectural arrogance. She thought of William, probably finding a warm doorway somewhere to sleep in, and felt guilty about her good fortune. The lobby was overwhelming, 3 stories of marble and chrome, with a waterfall feature that probably cost more than she'd make in a lifetime. Security guards in expensive suits checked her ID twice before issuing her a temporary badge. Cleaning staff uses the service elevator, one guard said, his tone making it clear she didn't belong in the main lobby. Basement entrance, after today. Naomi nodded, used to being invisible. But as she walked to the service elevator, she didn't notice the homeless man sitting in the corner of the lobby, hunched over a cup of coffee from the building's cafe. William watched her disappear into the elevator, then stood and walked to the main elevators, pressing the button for the executive floor. By the time Naomi reached the 15th floor where she'd been assigned, William was already in his office, watching through security cameras. Thomas stood beside him, clearly uncomfortable with the deception. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish? Thomas asked. Understanding, William replied. I want to see how our employees are treated when no one thinks anyone important is watching. Naomi's first night was brutal. The other cleaners were cold, suspicious of an outsider getting such a prime assignment. The floor's supervisor, a bitter man named Derek, seemed to take personal offense at her presence. You think you're special? He sneered when she reported for duty. Someone pulls strings for you, and suddenly you're too good for the regular buildings? I didn't ask for this, Naomi said quietly. Sure you didn't. Just do your job and stay out of everyone's way. She was assigned to the executive floors, a test in itself, as these required the most detailed work. Every surface had to be perfect, every trash can emptied without disturbing the precisely arranged papers, every bathroom cleaned to hospital standards. As she worked, she couldn't help but notice the casual wealth everywhere. A single chair in one office cost more than she made in 3 months. A executive's assistant had left a designer purse on her desk that could pay Jordan's school fees for years. The refrigerator in the break room was stocked with free food, organic fruits, artisan sandwiches, imported waters. That would spoil because executives prefer to eat out. Must be nice, she muttered, thinking of the bologna sandwich she'd eaten for dinner 3 nights in a row. What was that? She spun to find a man in an expensive suit watching her. He was young, probably early 30s, with the kind of aggressive confidence that came from never being told no. Nothing, sir. Just cleaning. He stepped closer, and Naomi recognized the type immediately. She'd dealt with men like him before. Men who saw cleaning staff as either invisible or available. You're new, he said, his eyes traveling over her in a way that made her skin crawl. Temporary assignment, sir. Well, if you need anything at all, my office is right there. He pointed to a corner office with his name on the door. Mitchell Richardson, Senior Vice President. After he left, Naomi Googled him on her phone. Richardson was being groomed for CEO, according to the business news. Young, ruthless, and from old money. Everything William Whitaker apparently wasn't. The next evening, Jordan was waiting for her with incredible news. Naomi, I got into the robotics club. They gave me a scholarship. Full ride. She stared at the letter he was waving, reading it 3 times before it sank in. But how? Mr. Peterson said they had an anonymous donor who wanted to support promising students from our neighborhood. Can you believe it? Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. After so much struggle, something good was finally happening. She hugged Jordan tight, his joy infectious. And that's not all, Jordan said, pulling away. Will's here. I saw him outside and invited him up to celebrate. Sure enough, William was standing in their doorway, looking genuinely pleased. I heard the good news from the street, he said. Jordan was shouting pretty loud. They celebrated with cheap pizza and soda, Jordan talking a mile a minute about circuits and programming while William listened with genuine interest. Naomi watched them, feeling something she hadn't felt in years, hope. I should go, William said eventually. Let you two enjoy this. Where will you sleep tonight? Jordan asked innocently. William hesitated. I'll find somewhere. You could stay here, Jordan offered, ignoring Naomi's sharp look. The couch isn't much, but it's warm. Jordan, Naomi started. It's okay, William said quickly. I appreciate the offer, but I've got a place lined up. You two enjoy your evening. After he left, Jordan turned to his sister. Why didn't you want him to stay? It's complicated, Naomi said. Because you like him? Jordan, what? He likes you too. It's obvious. Naomi shook her head, but she was thinking about the way William looked at her, like she was worth looking at. It had been so long since anyone had seen her as anything more than a function, cleaner, guardian, provider. At Whitaker Industries the next night, Naomi was cleaning the 40th floor when she heard raised voices from the conference room. The door was cracked, and she could hear clearly. The old man's lost it, someone was saying. These bleeding heart initiatives are costing us millions. Richardson's right, another voice agreed. Fair wages for cleaning staff? Extended health care? Whitaker's gone soft. Not for long. Richardson's voice was smug. I've been documenting his absences, his erratic behavior. The board's ready for new leadership. Naomi moved away quickly, but not before hearing one more thing. What about his little experiments? Dressing like a bum, hanging around the building, makes our case for us. Mental instability. By next quarter, I'll be sitting in his chair. She processed this information as she worked. Whitaker, the Whitaker whose name was on the building, was dressing like a homeless person. Her mind raced, pieces of a puzzle starting to form, but she pushed the thoughts away. It was too crazy. Later that shift, she was in the executive kitchen when she heard a commotion. Someone had dropped an envelope thick with cash near the elevator. Other cleaning staff had gathered, whispering about what to do. Split it, Derek said immediately. No one would know. That's stealing, Naomi said. From who? These rich pricks won't even notice it's gone. Naomi picked up the envelope, ignoring Derek's protests, and took it straight to security. The guard looked surprised. You sure you want to turn this in? That's at least $5,000. $5,000. More than she made in 2 months. Enough to pay off their immediate debts, buy Jordan a laptop, Maybe even save something for once. It's not mine, she said simply. The guard shrugged and logged it. As Naomi walked away, she didn't see the security camera tracking her or William watching from his office, a small smile on his face. The test continued the next night. An executive assistant approached Naomi with an offer. I'll give you $200 to let me into Mr. Whitaker's office. I just need to check something on his computer. I don't have access to his office, Naomi said. But you could get it during your cleaning rounds. No. 500. No. The woman's face hardened. You don't know who you're messing with. Neither do you, Naomi replied, walking away. By the end of the week, Naomi was exhausted. The tests, though she didn't know that's what they were, kept coming. Money left in places she'd find it. Offers to spy on executives. Invitations to private parties that were clearly something else. She turned them all down, growing more frustrated with each incident. Is this what the regular crew dealt with? How did anyone work here without losing their soul? Friday night brought a breaking point. She'd been cleaning for 6 straight hours when her body finally gave out. The room spun, her knees buckled, and she collapsed in the supply closet. She came to with William's face above her, his expression frantic with worry. Naomi, thank God. I was walking by and heard something fall. She tried to sit up, embarrassed. I'm Fina. Just tired. You're not fine. You're working yourself to death. I don't have a choice, she snapped, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry. This place. It's different from my usual buildings. The money's better, but the people. What about the people? She told him then about the offers, the bribes, the way they looked at her like she was either invisible or for sale. William's face darkened with each word. They shouldn't treat anyone like that, he said quietly. It's the real world, Will. People with money think they can buy anything, even people. Not everyone with money thinks that way. How would you know? She asked, then saw hurt flash across his face. I'm sorry. That was cruel. But honest, he said. You're always honest. It's one of the things I admire about you. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Naomi noticed something. The way William had navigated the building to find her, the way he'd known which supply closet she'd be in, the casual way he'd walked past security. Will, she said slowly, why did you get up here? This is a secure floor. He froze. The guards know me. I told you, I sometimes sleep in the building. But doubt had been planted. She thought about his vocabulary, his knowledge, the way he'd handled those parents at Jordan's school. The pieces were forming a picture she didn't want to see. I should get back to work, she said, standing carefully. Naomi, please, Will. I need this job. I can't be seen sitting around with. She paused, not wanting to say it. With a homeless man, he finished quietly. That's not what I meant. It's okay. I understand. He stood to leave, then turned back. Naomi, what if things weren't what they seemed? What if people weren't who you thought they were? Then I'd wonder why they lied to me, she said simply. William left without another word, but Naomi stood in the supply closet for a long moment, her mind racing. She thought about the executive she'd overheard talking about Whitaker dressing like a bum. She thought about William's mysterious appearances, his education, his bearing. No, she said aloud. That's insane. But the seed of suspicion had been planted. As she finished her shift, she found herself looking at the portraits of William Whitaker that hung in the building's lobby. The man in the pictures was clean-shaven, polished, powerful. But there was something about the eyes. She shook her head and headed home, where Jordan was waiting with his first robotics club project, a small robot that could sort different colored blocks. Will help me design it, Jordan said proudly. He knows so much about engineering. He said he'd love to see it when it's done. Did he? Naomi said quietly. That night, she lay awake thinking. If William was who she was beginning to suspect, then everything between them was built on a lie. But why would someone like that pretend to be homeless? What could he possibly gain? At 3 a.m, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your honesty and integrity have been noticed. Changes are coming. A friend. She stared at the message, unease growing in her stomach. Changes. In her experience, changes were rarely good for people like her. But as she finally drifted off to sleep, she thought about William's eyes when he looked at her, The genuine warmth there, the real connection she felt. Whatever game was being played, whatever test this was, she realized something that scared her. She was falling for him. The homeless man who might be a billionaire. The liar who made her feel more honestly seen than anyone ever had. The contradiction that was William Whitaker. And next week, she had a feeling everything would come crashing down. Monday morning arrived with heavy rain that matched Naomi's mood. She'd spent the weekend replaying every interaction with William, every moment that should have told her something was off. The way security guards nodded at him, his extensive knowledge, the coincidence of her reassignment to Whitaker Industries right after meeting him. Jordan noticed her distraction at breakfast. "You okay? You've been weird all weekend." "Just tired," she lied, pushing eggs around her plate. "Is it about Will? He hasn't come by lately." "It's complicated, Jordan." Her brother set down his fork. When I showed him my robotics design, he gave me suggestions that my teacher said were graduate-level engineering. Nobody sleeping on the streets knows that stuff. Naomi looked at him sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe Will has a story he's not telling." "But Naomi," Jordan leaned forward, "he's never been anything but kind to us. Whatever his reasons, doesn't that count for something?" Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. "Emergency meeting at Whitaker Industries. All cleaning staff. 2 p.m. Don't be late." Naomi arrived at the meeting to find the entire cleaning crew assembled in a conference room she'd never seen before. Derek stood at the front, looking smug. "Corporate's doing an investigation," he announced. "Someone's been testing us, leaving money around, trying to bribe staff. They want to know if anyone's been approached." Murmurs rippled through the room. Naomi stayed silent, but Derek's eyes found her anyway. "Washington, you turned in that envelope last week. $5,000. "Why?" "Because it wasn't mine," she said simply. "Must be nice to be so noble when your teacher's pet," someone muttered. Derek smiled coldly. "Here's the thing. Corporate thinks someone's been feeding information to competitors. Someone with access to executive floors." His gaze never left Naomi. "Someone who got a mysterious reassignment right when all this started." "Are you accusing me of something?" Naomi asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm saying it's suspicious. You show up, weird things start happening, executives start noticing the cleaning staff. Maybe you're working with someone." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? You've been seen talking to that homeless man who hangs around the building. Pretty friendly for strangers." Before Naomi could respond, the conference room door opened. A security guard entered, followed by William. But this wasn't the William she knew. He was clean-shaven, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, his gray hair styled, his bearing completely different. The transformation was so complete that for a moment, she thought it was someone else. Until she saw his eyes. The room went dead silent. "Mr. Whitaker," Derek stammered, all his smugness evaporating. "Sir, we didn't expect." "I'm sure you didn't," William said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd never been questioned. "I've been conducting my own investigation, Mr. Derek, into how our cleaning staff is treated, how they're paid, how they're respected or not." His eyes found Naomi, who stood frozen, her mind reeling. The homeless man she'd bought coffee for, the friend she'd trusted, the billionaire whose name was on the building. "The tests were mine," William continued, addressing the room but looking at Naomi. "Every bribe, every planted dollar, every situation designed to test character. And I'm pleased to say that some of you," his gaze swept the room, landing on Naomi again, "have shown more integrity than most of my executives." "Sir," Derek started, "if I'd known it was you." "That's exactly the point. You didn't know. And you show me exactly who you are when you think no one important is watching." William's voice hardened. "You're terminated, effective immediately." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Security escorted him out as William turned to address the remaining staff. "Things are going to change around here. Fair wages, better treatment, respect for the work you do. Because I've learned something recently." He paused, and his eyes found Naomi one more time. "I've learned that the measure of a person isn't in their bank account. It's in their character." He left without another word, but his presence lingered like electricity in the air. The other cleaners dispersed, whispering among themselves, But Naomi stood rooted to the spot. Naomi. She turned to find Thomas, William's assistant, waiting by the door. He'd like to speak with you. Privately. She wanted to refuse, to run, to process what had just happened. But her feet followed Thomas to the executive elevator, up to the top floor she'd never seen before. William's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He stood with his back to her, still in that expensive suit, looking nothing like the man she'd shared sandwiches with. "I can explain," he said without turning around. "Can you?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Can you explain why you lied to me? Why you made me believe you were someone else?" He turned then, as she saw pain in his eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started as an experiment. I wanted to see how the other half lived, how my employees were treated when no one knew who I was. And I was just part of your experiment?" "No." The word came out sharp, desperate. "Naomi, you were never an experiment. That day in a coffee shop, when you paid for my order, you didn't know who I was. You just saw someone who needed help. So you decided to play with me? Test me. I decided to know you. The real you, not the version people show to billionaires." He stepped closer, but she backed away. "Do you know how long it's been since someone talked to me like a human being? Since someone disagreed with me or told me I was wrong? So you used me for your entertainment? I fell in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know you work 16-hour days to keep your brother in school. I know you count every penny, but still gave your coffee money to a stranger. I know you turn down bribes, even when you can barely pay your bills. I know you're raising Jordan to be a good man despite having every reason to be bitter at the world." His voice softened. "I know you, Naomi Washington, better than I know anyone in my life. And I don't know you at all," she shot back. "William Whitaker, Billionaire CEO. How could someone like you ever understand someone like me? Because for the past month, I've been living it. Seeing how people treat you when they think you're worthless. Feeling invisible, dismissed, mocked." He ran a hand through his styled hair, messing it up. "You asked me once why they called it Whitaker Industries. It's because I built it from nothing. My father was a janitor, Naomi. My mother cleaned houses. I know exactly what it's like to have nothing. Then how could you forget? How could you become someone who pays poverty wages while sitting in this palace? Because I got comfortable. I got isolated. I stopped seeing the people behind the numbers." He moved to his desk, picking up a familiar napkin, Jordan's robotics design. "Until I met you and Jordan. You reminded me why I started this company. To make things better, not just bigger." Naomi stared at the napkin. "You kept that. I've kept everything. Every moment, every conversation. Naomi, ino elite. I know I betrayed your trust. But what I feel for you is the most honest thing in my life." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I need to go. I need to think. Your job is safe. More than safe. I'm promoting you to facilities coordinator if you want it. Triple your current salary. I don't want your charity. It's not charity. It's what you deserve. What you've always deserved." She headed for the door, then stopped. "That night, when I collapsed, how did you really find me?" "I was watching on the security cameras," he admitted. "I watched you every night, making sure you were safe." "Safe? Or making sure I passed your tests?" "Both." "Neither. I don't know anymore." He looked exhausted suddenly, older. "Naomi, I'm sorry. For all of it." She left without another word, taking the stairs because she couldn't bear the elevator. 59 floors down, her legs shaking by the end, her mind spinning with everything she'd learned. At home, Jordan was waiting with questions she couldn't answer. How was she supposed to tell him that what was actually William Whitaker, that their friend was a billionaire who'd been pretending? "Something happened," Jordan said, reading her face. "Is it Will?" She nodded, unable to speak. "Is he okay?" The question broke her heart. Even now, Jordan's first thought was concern for their friend. He's not who he thought he was. She told him everything, watching his face cycle through surprise, hurt, and confusion. "So he lied?" Jordan said finally. "Yes, but he also got me into robotics club." "I think so. And your new job assignment?" "Probably." Jordan was quiet for a moment. "Remember what Dad used to say? That people are complicated. That good people can do bad things, and bad people can do good things. This is different, Jordan. Is it?" He lied, yeah, but he also stood up for us at school. He listened to my ideas. He made you smile for the first time in months. Jordan picked up his robot project. I don't care if he's rich or poor. He's still Will to me. The next morning, Naomi woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Confused, she opened her news app and felt her stomach drop. Billionaire CEO's secret obsession. Whitaker's cleaning lady girlfriend. The headlines were everywhere, accompanied by grainy security footage of her and William in the supply closet. Him helping her up, their faces close together. Other photos showed them at the coffee shop, walking into her apartment building, sitting together in the hospital cafe. Her phone rang. Rosa. Naomi. Honey, reporters are here at the main office. They're asking about you. What? Someone leaked a story. About you and Mr. Whitaker. They're saying things. Naomi's hands shook as she scrolled through the articles. Sources say Whitaker has been neglecting his duties to pursue a cleaning woman. Questions arise about CEO's mental stability. Board members express concern about leadership. Jordan appeared in her doorway, his own phone in hand. Naomi, there are people outside. She looked out the window. News vans lined their street. Reporters clustered around their building's entrance. Their neighbors were peering out windows, pointing at her apartment. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. Ms. Washington? This is Mitchell Richardson from Whitaker Industries. I think we should talk. Something in his voice made her skin crawl. What do you want? To help you, of course. This must be overwhelming. Why don't you come to my office? We can discuss how to handle this situation. She knew a trap when she heard one. But what choice did she have? I'll be there in an hour. Come to the executive conference room, 20th floor. And Naomi? You might want to use the service entrance. The main lobby is rather crowded with press. Getting Jordan to school was a nightmare. They had to go out the back, through the alley, her jacket pulled over his head to hide his face. At school, she watched him walk in with his shoulders hunched, already hearing whispers from other students. The service entrance of Whitaker Industries was indeed free of reporters, but the security guards looked at her differently now. Not with dismissal, but with curiosity and something else, pity, maybe. The executive conference room wasn't empty as she'd expected. Mitchell Richardson sat at the head of the table, flanked by 6 other board members. They all turned to stare when she entered. Ms. Washington. Richardson smiled like a shark. Please sit. She remained standing. What is this? This is an opportunity. You see, the board is concerned about Mr. Whitaker's recent behavior. His little experiments. His obsession with you. Obsession. Richardson slid a tablet across the table. On it was video footage of William watching her on security cameras, following her routes, documenting her movements. He's been stalking you for weeks, using company resources to manipulate your life. The job reassignment, your brother's scholarship, all of it was him pulling strings. Naomi felt sick. Seeing it laid out like this made it look so much worse than it was. Or was it exactly as bad as it looked? What do you want? She asked. Your cooperation. The board is holding an emergency vote tomorrow to remove William as CEO. His mental state is clearly compromised, but we need testimony from you about his behavior. How he deceived you, manipulated you, potentially harassed you. He didn't harass me, didn't he? A billionaire CEO following a vulnerable cleaning woman, inserting himself into her life under false pretenses, using his power to control her circumstances. Richardson leaned forward. Some might call that predatory. The words hit like physical blows because there was enough truth in them to hurt. In exchange for your cooperation, Richardson continued, we're prepared to offer you a substantial settlement. Enough to ensure you and your brother never have to worry about money again. He named a figure that made her head spin. Enough to send Jordan to any college. Enough to go back to school herself. Enough to never clean another office. All you have to do, Richardson said, is tell the truth about how William Whitaker manipulated you. Naomi looked around the table at these powerful people, all watching her expectantly. She thought about the bills, about Jordan's future, about the life that money could buy. I need time to think, she said. Of course. You have until tomorrow morning. The board meets at 9. Richardson stood, that shark smile returning. Oh, and Ms. Washington? You should know that if Mr. Whitaker is removed, All his recent initiatives will be reversed. The wage increases, the benefit improvements, all too expensive, I'm afraid. The threat was clear. Help them destroy William or watch every cleaning person in the company suffer. Naomi left through the service entrance again, but this time, a reporter was waiting. Ms. Washington, is it true you're pregnant with Whitaker's baby? What? No. Are you blackmailing him? Did you seduce him for money? She pushed past them, but more appeared. The lies they were shouting got wilder, more humiliating. By the time she reached the subway, tears were streaming down her face. At home, she found Jordan being comforted by their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Some kids threw eggs at him, Mrs. Patterson explained. Called him names I won't repeat. Jordan's shirt was stained yellow, his eyes red from crying. They said you were a gold digger, that you tricked Mr. Whitaker, that we were trash trying to steal from him. Naomi held him while he cried, her own tears falling into his hair. This was the price of William's deception. Not just her humiliation, but Jordan's. Her phone buzzed. William calling. She declined. He called again, and again. Finally, she answered. What? Naomi, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to stop this. The board leaked everything to discredit me, but I never meant. You never meant for Jordan to be pelted with eggs? You never meant for reporters to call me a whore? No. God, no. Naomi, please. Let me fix this. You can't fix this. Don't you get it? You turned our lives into a weapon for your enemies to use. We're just collateral damage in your rich people's war. Come to the penthouse. Both of you. I can keep you safe there until this blows over. Hide in your tower? Become even more of a kept woman than they're already saying I am? That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. You meant to protect us. Just like you meant to help us with your tests and manipulations. Your intentions don't matter, William. The damage is done. She hung up and turned off her phone. That evening, she and Jordan ordered Chinese takeout, their comfort food, and tried to pretend the world outside didn't exist. But the damage was evident in how quiet Jordan was, how he kept checking his phone and flinching at whatever he saw there. It's not your fault, he said suddenly. What? What's happening? It's not your fault. You didn't know who he was. I should have figured it out. How? He lied pretty good. Jordan poked at his rice. But Naomi, I don't think he meant to hurt us. Impact matters more than intention. Does it? If someone trying to help accidentally hurts you, is that the same as someone trying to hurt you on purpose? She didn't have an answer for that. That night, unable to sleep, she sat at their small kitchen table and made a list. All the ways William had lied. All the ways he'd helped. All the damage his exposure had caused. All the good his changes might do for other workers. At 3 a.m, she heard a soft knock. Through the peephole, she saw William, not in a suit, not in rags, but in simple jeans and a sweater, looking exhausted. Please, he said through the door. 5 minutes. She opened the door, but didn't invite him in. You shouldn't be here. The reporters. I don't care about the reporters. I care about you. About Jordan. About fixing this. You can't. I can withdraw from the company. Give Richardson what he wants. Let things die down. And all those workers counting on your changes? They're not worth you and Jordan's suffering. She stared at him. You don't get it, do you? We are those workers. Every single one of them is a Naomi or a Jordan trying to survive. You don't get to sacrifice them for us. Then what do you want me to do? Fight, she said simply. Fight Richardson. Fight the board. Fight for the changes you promised. I'll lose without your testimony. Richardson's made sure of that. Then you'll lose. She started to close the door. Naomi, wait. Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. Meeting you changed everything for me. Not because of some experiment or test, but because you saw me, the real me, underneath everything. And you made me want to be better. The real you, she repeated. Which one was that, William? The homeless man? The CEO? Someone in between? All of them? None of them? I don't know anymore. She looked at him for a long moment. This complicated man who'd upended her life. That's the problem, William. You don't know who you are. Until you figure that out, you'll keep hurting people without meaning to. She closed the door, leaving him in the hallway. Through the peephole, she watched him stand there for a full minute before walking away. In the morning, she woke Jordan early. Get dressed. Your best clothes. Why? We're going to a board meeting. His eyes widened. To help Will. To tell the truth. Whatever happens after that is up to them. They arrived at Whitaker Industries to find chaos. Reporters packed the lobby. Security guards struggled to maintain order. Richardson stood near the elevators, speaking to cameras about new leadership and necessary changes. He saw Naomi and smiled that shark smile. She walked right past him to the security desk. Naomi Washington and Jordan Washington. We're here for the board meeting. The guard looked confused. I don't have you on the list. Then put us on it, she said, loud enough for the reporters to hear. The woman at the center of your scandal is here to testify. The lobby exploded. Cameras swung toward her. Richardson's face went from smug to concerned. And somewhere high above, William Whitaker watched on a security monitor, his heart racing with hope and fear. Let them up, he told Thomas. Both of them. The elevator ride felt eternal. Jordan held Naomi's hand, squeezing tight. Whatever happens, he said, I'm proud of you. The boardroom doors opened, and Naomi stepped into the lion's den, ready to speak her truth, whatever the cost. The boardroom fell silent as Naomi and Jordan entered. The space was intimidating. A massive oval table of polished wood, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and 12 board members in expensive suits staring at them like they were specimens under a microscope. William sat at the far end of the table, his face carefully neutral, but Naomi saw his hands tighten on the armrest of his chair. Richardson stood at the opposite end, a presentation already loaded on the screen behind him showing security footage of William in his homeless disguise. Ms. Washington. Richardson's voice oozed false sympathy. Thank you for joining us. I know this must be difficult. Not as difficult as you'd think, Naomi replied, her voice steady. Richardson's smile flickered. Please have a seat. Tell us about your experience with Mr. Whitaker. Naomi remained standing. Jordan stood beside her, chin raised despite his obvious nervousness. I met a man who needed help, she began. His card was declined at a coffee shop. People laughed. I paid for his order because that's what decent people do. But he wasn't really poor, Richardson interrupted. He was deceiving you. Yes, Naomi agreed and saw William flinch. He was pretending to be homeless while being richer than anyone in that coffee shop could imagine. Exactly, Richardson pounced. He manipulated you, inserted himself into your life under false pretenses. He did. Naomi cut him off. And I'm angry about that. Hurt. Confused. But you know what else he did? She pulled out her phone, scrolling to her notes from the night before. He sat with my brother for hours, helping with homework, encouraging his dreams when everyone else told him to be realistic. He stood up to bullies at Jordan's school when parents with money tried to make us disappear. He ate dollar store sandwiches with me and never once made me feel like I was less than him. Because he was lying to you. Richardson's composure cracked slightly. Was he? Naomi looked directly at William for the first time. Were you lying when you told Jordan that his robotics designs were brilliant? Were you lying when you said dignity doesn't cost money? Were you lying when you told me that how we treat people defines who we are? William's eyes glistened. No, never about that. Ms. Washington, an elderly board member, spoke up. Surely you understand the impropriety here. A CEO cannot simply disguise himself and what? See how his company actually operates? Learn how his employees are really treated. Naomi's voice grew stronger. Do you know what I've heard in this building while cleaning your offices? The jokes about the help, the casual cruelty, the way you discuss cutting benefits like you're choosing lunch options. She turned to address the entire board. Mr. Whitaker did lie to me, but he also did something none of you have ever done. He looked at me and saw a person worth knowing. Not a function, not a line item in a budget, but a human being. This is all very touching, Richardson said coldly, but it doesn't address the mental instability, the neglect of duties, the erratic behavior. You mean his conscience? Jordan spoke for the first time, his young voice cutting through the corporate speak. That's what you're calling mental instability? Young man, you don't understand. I understand plenty. Jordan pulled out his robotics notebook, the one William had seen that first night. Mr. Whitaker looked at my designs, really looked at them. He told me they had potential. Do you know what that means to a kid from my neighborhood? To have someone important believe in you. He flipped through pages, showing complex diagrams. But more than that, he showed me something. That money doesn't make you better or worse. It's what you do with it. And what are you doing with it, Mr. Richardson? Richardson's face reddened. This is a board meeting, not a school project. Actually, a new voice interrupted. Thomas entered, wheeling in a cart of documents. This is about the future of the company, and I have some information the board should see. William looked surprised. Thomas, what are you? My job, sir. Why should have done weeks ago? Thomas began distributing folders. Financial projections based on Mr. Whitaker's proposed worker initiatives. Productivity is up 15% in departments where wages increased. Turnover is down 40%. Customer satisfaction scores have improved across all metrics. Temporary bumps, Richardson dismissed. 3-year trends, actually, Thomas continued. But more interesting is this. He pulled up a new presentation. Emails between Mr. Richardson and competitors, discussing the acquisition of Whitaker Industries after a hostile takeover. Promises of board positions in exchange for votes. Securities fraud, by any definition. The room erupted. Board members shouted over each other. Richardson went pale, then red, then purple with rage. You can't prove. I can't actually. Thomas smiled grimly. Mr. Whitaker asked me to investigate irregularities weeks ago, before his experiment. He suspected corporate espionage but wanted proof. This is entrapment. Richardson snarled. This is justice, William said quietly, standing for the first time. You tried to use Naomi and Jordan as weapons against me. You exposed them to public humiliation to further your ambitions. That, Mitchell, is unforgivable. He turned to the board. I did deceive Ms. Washington. I'm not proud of that. But I learned more about our company's soul in a month of seeing it from the bottom than I did in 20 years from the top. We've lost our way. We've forgotten that every number on our spreadsheets represents a person with dreams, struggles, dignity. An elderly board member, Mrs. Chun, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. I founded this company with William's father 40 years ago. He was a janitor who had ideas about efficiency and worker dignity. We built this empire on the principle that if you treat workers well, they'll build something great. She looked around the table. When did we forget that? When profits became more important than people, William answered. But I remember now. Thanks to Naomi. Thanks to Jordan. Thanks to every invisible person who keeps this place running while we pretend they don't exist. So what are you proposing? Another board member asked. Full implementation of worker initiatives. Living wages for all employees. Comprehensive health care. Education programs. And Richardson's immediate termination for securities fraud. You don't have the votes, Richardson sneered. Let's find out. William looked around the table. All in favor of maintaining current leadership and implementing the proposed reforms. One by one, hands raised. Mrs. Chun first, then Thomas revealed he held proxy votes for 2 absent members. Another board member, younger than the rest, raised his hand. I've been waiting for someone to have the courage to say what Ms. Washington just said. When the count finished, it was 7-5. William retained control. Richardson stood, fury radiating from every line of his body. This isn't over. Yes, it is, William replied calmly. Security is waiting outside to escort you out. Your personal items will be sent to you. As Richardson was led away, still shouting about lawsuits and revenge, the boardroom slowly emptied until only William, Naomi, Jordan, and Thomas remained. Thomas, William said quietly. Thank you. You're a good man, sir. You just forgot for a while. Thomas smiled at Naomi. Sometimes we all need someone to remind us who we really are. He left, closing the door behind him. William approached Naomi and Jordan slowly, like they might run. I don't expect forgiveness. What I did was wrong, no matter my intentions. It was, Naomi agreed. You hurt us. I know, and I'll spend as long as it takes trying to make that right. You can start by being honest, Jordan said. No more disguises. No more games. Just be who you really are. I'm trying to figure that out, William admitted. For so long, I've been either the CEO or the experiment. I don't know how to be both. You start by remembering where you came from, Naomi said softly. Your father was a janitor. Your mother cleaned houses. That's not something to hide from or be ashamed of. That's your strength. William's eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. How can you be so forgiving? I'm not, Naomi said. Not yet. Trust takes time to rebuild. But I believe in second chances. My parents taught me that. Will you stay? William asked. The facilities coordinator position is real, not charity. You're qualified, you're capable, and you understand our workers better than anyone. Naomi looked at Jordan, who nodded encouragingly. On one condition, Jordan gets an internship in the engineering department. Paid, of course. Of course. William smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. Thomas will draw up the paperwork. And, Naomi continued, you eat lunch with the cleaning staff once a week. No suits, no pretense. Just William, remembering who he is. Deal. Jordan stepped forward suddenly and hugged William. The older man froze, then slowly returned the embrace, his shoulders shaking slightly. Thank you, Jordan whispered, for believing in me. Thank you, William whispered back, for believing I could be better. 6 months later, Whitaker Industries looked different. Not just the fresh paint in the employee break rooms or the new equipment for the cleaning staff, but something deeper. The security guards smiled when Naomi walked through the main entrance each morning, no longer directing her to the service elevator. The executives nodded respectfully to the maintenance workers. The invisible had become visible. Naomi stood in her office, her own office, with a window and everything, reviewing the latest employee satisfaction reports. Numbers were up across the board. Turnover had plummeted. 3 other major corporations had started reaching out, wanting to understand the Whitaker model of employee relations. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Jordan entered, wearing his engineering intern badge proudly, carrying a prototype of his latest project. Look, he set the device on her desk. It's an automated cleaning assistant, not to replace workers, but to help with the heavy lifting. Mr. Whitaker said if it tests well, we might patent it. Mr. Whitaker said that, did he? Naomi smiled. Well, William said it. He keeps telling me to call him William, but it feels weird. The door opened again, and William himself entered, carrying 3 cups of coffee from the cafe downstairs, the same one where they'd first met. Thought you might need caffeine, he said, distributing the cups. Jordan's been working you both too hard on this project. It had taken months to get here, to this easy familiarity. There had been awkward lunches where conversation stilted and stopped. Moments where the betrayal felt fresh again. Times when Naomi wanted to quit, to run, to pretend none of it had happened. But there had been other moments too. William at Jordan's robotics competition, cheering louder than any parent. William in coveralls, helping the maintenance staff when a pipe burst, not for show, but because hands were needed. William in her mother's church, the only white face in the congregation, there because she'd mentioned missing her parents on the anniversary of their death. The Times wants to do another story, William said, settling into the chair across from her desk. About the transformation, the new policies, the success metrics. What did you tell them? That they should talk to you. You're the architect of all this. We both know that's not true. We both know it is. His voice was serious. I might have signed the papers, but you showed me what needed to change. You and Jordan. Every worker who's benefited from these programs owes it to your courage in that boardroom. They owe it to themselves, Naomi corrected, for doing the work every day, keeping this place running, maintaining their dignity even when no one saw them. You're going to make me cry again, William said, and he was only half joking. Again, Jordan teased. You cried at my robotics presentation last week. That was allergies. Sure it was. They laughed, and Naomi marveled at how natural it felt. How this strange little family had formed from deception and pain and struggle. There's something else, William said, growing serious. The board wants to expand the program. National implementation across all our subsidiaries. It would mean travel, meetings, a lot more responsibility. Naomi, they want you to head it up. She stared at him. Me? I don't have a degree. I don't have experience. You have something better. You have understanding. You know what workers need because you've been there. You know what dignity looks like because you've fought for it. It's a big job, she said quietly. You'd have help, a team, resources, and he hesitated, then continued, a partner if you'd let me. The words hung in the air. They'd been dancing around this for months, the feelings that had survived betrayal and grown stronger through honesty. A business partner? She asked, though she knew that wasn't what he meant. Any kind of partner you'd be willing to have. Jordan looked between them, then stood. I'm going to go show this to the engineering team. Take your time. He paused at the door. But just so you know, I approve. After he left, Naomi and William sat in silence for a moment. I'm scared, she admitted. Not of the job. Of us. Of what people will say. They'll say what they've always said. That you're too young. I'm too old. That you're black. I'm white. That you're poor. I'm rich. He leaned forward. But you taught me something, Naomi. Money doesn't decide who we are. How we treat people does, she finished. And I want to spend whatever time I have left treating you the way you deserve. With respect, with honesty, with love. Naomi stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere down there, a cleaner was starting their shift, invisible to the people walking past. But not here. Not anymore. Okay, she said softly. Okay to the job, or okay to both. She turned to face him. But we do this right. Slow. Honest. No more lies. No more disguises. Just us, William agreed, standing to join her at the window. The janitor's son and the cleaner who changed a company. That's quite a story, Naomi said. The best ones usually are. A year later, the Whitaker Foundation hosted its first annual Workers' Dignity Gala. The ballroom was filled not with executives and politicians, but with maintenance workers, security guards, cleaning staff, all in their finest clothes, all being celebrated for their essential work. Naomi stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. Jordan sat at the head table, now heading to MIT on a full scholarship, his robotics patents already earning enough to ensure their security. William stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her back, supportive but not possessive. A year and a half ago, she began, I bought coffee for a stranger whose card was declined. I did it because my parents taught me that kindness doesn't cost anything. That dignity isn't determined by your bank account. That how we treat people when no one's watching defines who we are. She found familiar faces in the crowd. Rosa, now a regional manager. Mrs. Patterson from their old building, invited as Jordan's guest. Thomas, smiling proudly from his table. That stranger taught me something too, she continued. That change is possible. That people can grow. That companies can have souls. That sometimes the best transformations come from the most unexpected places. She looked at William, who nodded encouragingly. The Whitaker Foundation isn't just about fair wages or better benefits, though those matter. It's about recognition. It's about seeing every person who makes our world function. It's about remembering that the person cleaning your office has dreams, has family, has worth beyond their function. The applause was thunderous. As she stepped back from the podium, William took her hand. Your parents would be proud, he whispered. They would, she agreed. Of both of us. Later, as the gala wound down, they found themselves in the lobby where they'd had their confrontation months ago. The coffee shop was closed, but they could see it through the glass doors. "Want to get coffee?" William asked. "I promise my card won't decline this time." Naomi laughed. "Only if you're buying. I spent all my coffee money on this dress." "Liar. I know exactly how much you make now." "True, but you're still buying." They walked out together, past the security guards who waved goodnight, past the photos on the wall that now included pictures of every employee, not just executives. In the coffee shop, the night shift barista recognized them and smiled. "The usual?" she asked. They nodded. They had a usual now. William Whitaker, Billionaire CEO, and Naomi Washington, former cleaner turned Chief Dignity Officer, the title she'd chosen herself. A usual coffee order at the place where it all began. As they sat in the same chairs where they'd first truly seen each other, Jordan texted Naomi a photo from the gala. The three of them laughing at something Thomas had said, looking like the unlikely family they'd become. "No regrets?" William asked, seeing her expression. "No," Naomi said, meaning it. "No regrets." Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere, a cleaner was starting their shift. Somewhere, a CEO was making decisions that would affect thousands. Somewhere, kindness was changing a life in ways no one could predict. And in a coffee shop where it all began, two people who'd found each other through deception and learned to love through truth sat together. Equals at last. What would you have done in that coffee shop? Would you have laughed with the crowd, stayed silent, or been the one person brave enough to show kindness when it mattered most? If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us what truly makes us human.